a women's apparel brand. Each collection that we drop, we hire a location. Let's just say it could be a beautiful villa in Bali. And we've even brought in sometimes a very proficient and respected videographer, but they'll move the editing really quickly and flashing, and that's not what our customer wants. What gets you to 1 million? Good product. I think you obviously need to have something that people really want. Find a hero product. There's a big tip for you that I learned.
Hey Donald, welcome to the DTC Daily podcast. How are you doing today?
Really well. Great to be with you.
Before we jump into everything, could you tell us a little bit about your business, what you guys do, what got you guys to start the business?
Yeah, so we're a women's apparel brand, primarily targeting women over 40. Who are looking for a blend of comfort and style. We're primarily selling natural fabrics, linen, with a large focus on, say, pants that have a comfort with elasticated waistbands, and other types of clothing that's breathable and just feels really nice and comfortable on. And we've been going now for a bit more than 4 years and experienced quite a lot of growth. Believe it or not, there actually has been a gap in the apparel market. Who would have thought, with the thousands of labels that's out there? But we've been able to more or less double every year, and we're currently now an 8-figure brand with still some big ambitions to continue our global expansion. We've been selling into the US now for a couple of years and experienced a lot of growth, particularly in the last 12 months, and then we want to springboard further into other regions, the Europe and the Middle East, as we think that our target market is underserved in those as well. So we're pretty excited about what we can continue to achieve.
So looking back on this journey, what would you say has been the single largest growth driver for the brand?
Yeah, like when I sort of shifted from B2B sales, one of the things that I focused a lot on and learned from was having an ICP, so your ideal customer profile. And I've honed my skills and learned from many of the top people in our game and e-com direct-to-consumer marketing strategies, and learned that to be good at this, you have to be a media company and you have to create lots of content. And the one piece of media that has really been incredibly powerful for us has been video. So I learned that short form video over the course of the last, say, 4 to 5 years has been amazing on Meta platforms. Obviously, Facebook ads being the number one medium to bring your offering to the market and direct to consumer. And we do a lot when it comes to that. Each collection that we drop, we hire a location. Let's just say it could be a beautiful villa in Bali, or we're going to be doing some video shoots over in the US in places like Palm Springs, and we've hired beautiful islands in Indonesia, and we take a crew there and we create amazing both static images that we use on the product page, as well as the videos. And my wife herself, she is her ICP, and we really double down on what's appealing to our customer. And it is very different than perhaps you may see at different demographics, like younger. And we've even brought in sometimes a very proficient and respected videographer, but they'll move the editing really quickly and flashing, and that's not what our customer wants. They want a more slow and really getting close to the fabric and demonstrating that quality and how it drapes, and really getting an understanding of that quality. Because one of the absolute selling points that we have is the 100% natural fabrics and the actual quality of it. And a woman in her 40s or 50s really values that, and we use video to demonstrate that, and that differentiates us from the thousands of other apparel businesses out there in the market. And it's been very powerful for us. Most of our discovery of our brand takes place on Meta, and video is incredible for doing that. I think when it comes to static ads, it's something that you add to the mix, but it doesn't scale anything like video. And we've had some incredible success doing that on Meta, and we'll continue to do that into the future.
Awesome. And again, going back to those early days, how did you figure that this is my ICP?
Well, we did it before we even launched. So I look back to May 2020, which is when my wife came to me and she said that she wanted to start another brand. So we had one before, and it was probably a bit more general or generic. It was for any woman, say from 25 to 65. We weren't really honed in on any particular type of needs or wants or age group at the time. And, you know, all honesty, I thought it was a crazy idea because there was still a lot of like uncertainty in the world back at 2020. As much as now we look back at it and it was like the most amazing time in e-com, what was about to take place for the next, say, 18 months. We didn't know that at the time. And the share market was still like plummeting with all the uncertainty that was taking place at the early stages of the pandemic. But fair play to my wife, Louisa. She plowed ahead regardless of what my thinking was. But I knew that to be successful, to be something different than's already happening with the big, large retailers, you needed to offer something that was different or better. So we actually spent hundreds of hours, believe it or not, during the pandemic. And I recall pacing up and down the living room, nailing what this customer wanted. And in some ways saying, well, who would pay for natural fabrics? Like there are hundreds of apparel businesses out there these days that, from what I have learned, they design something and then realize actually that costs a lot to produce and then have to blend in synthetics to make it more cost effective, where we were naive to that whatsoever and we just made high quality products from the beginning. And you have to actually somewhat be the ICP to fully appreciate it. So if you recall back, I'm not sure what age you are, Castle, I'm 42 years of age, but I reflect on myself when I was 25 or 30. I had no clue what a 40 plus year old person would be looking for. In fact, you think they're never buying online, they don't care about fashion. That's sort of the impression you have. And that might be why this is an underserved market where we really thought about it and use sort of ideas. There's a place here in Australia called Noosa, and you know, a lot of kind of affluent people go holidays there. We would say, like, what does this woman, the nomad woman as we call her, want to wear if she was getting on the plane? So she wants to be comfortable but also confident and have something that she feels stylish in, and then she doesn't know where she wants to go. Is she going out for a meal or meeting with friends? What could be sort of something that she feels versatile in but is also confident? And we built it around that. So this isn't going out clothing, this is everyday clothing that feels nice on. And it's a very hot climate here in Australia, and you need clothes that gives you that breathability as you sort of get into your 50s. You know, you have a stage in life for women, and having that confidence is something that's not going to have you sort of sweating in a hotter climate is really important. And we have really honed in on that, and our customer appreciates it.
So again, I'm going to ask you some basic questions because, you know, there are a lot of early stage founders, you know, who watch the podcast. A lot of them feel that they've done the research and, you know, they've kind of figured out the ICP, but then they can't figure out how do you translate that into, let's say, your content strategy or, you know, other things. So if you could say, okay, now that you've figured out, you know, that your ideal customer are these, you know, women between the age of 40 to 50, as you said, looking for these high quality natural fabrics. Now, how do you translate that into content strategy?
Yeah, so in the early days, you want to be continually testing. And I know that will never end, but at the beginning, you've got so much to learn. And you've got to be able to try to get as much feedback as you possibly can. And I know this may seem strange for people who are in direct-to-consumer world, where they think like one of the benefits is that we don't have to deal with the customer on a day-to-day basis. Be proactive. Speak to your customers. Find out, okay, if these early adopters of your product have taken the jump, why? What was it about the product? What was it about the content that resonated with them that they took the chance? And then figure out, how do I produce more of that? What was it about that worked? And there's going to be certain things that, unfortunately, you waste some money on. But it's so vitally important that you take the learnings and then refocus back on the things that's actually worked for you. And in marketing, sometimes you got to try a lot of things to like figure out the 20% of all your efforts it's actually going to get the biggest return. And I remember even seeing on Common Thread Collective, Taylor Holiday talking about one of their customers. I forget the gentleman's name, but he did sell swords, and they asked him, well, like, what would be the one thing that you could do that if you needed to like pay a PO next week and you needed to make a lot of money, what would it be? And for him, it was a TikTok video. For us, it would be to make a video showcasing the product and the drape of it in a location that she can resonate if she was going on vacation, whatever it may be, so that she can fully understand, well, what would be in it for her? Is that going to be something that she wants to confidently take up? And then the other things that we've really had to work hard on, and it's all good and well piquing someone's interest, but are they ultimately going to spend money with you? And you need to break down barriers around trust to be able to do that. So you've got to really talk to your customer. If that means that, like myself, you have to play the customer service role for a period of time until you actually understand what's working and what's not, that's when you know where to put your efforts and your investments.
And you mentioned for your shoots, you're going to these exotic locations. Was that from day one, or is that something that once you started hitting a certain amount of revenue that you could start investing in these expensive shoots? What were the early shoots like?
Yes, so interesting enough, at the very beginning, this was a case of during COVID, and Bali was deserted of tourists. But a lot of these villas actually pivoted to being photo shoot locations. And my wife wasn't actually able to attend it. So we had to put the trust in the photographer and the videographer to begin with. And were they of the scale that they are today? No. Sometimes you got to start with the minimum valuable product, MVP we'll say, and then build from that. And today, we'll be spending probably 5 or 6 times more money because we have the budget to invest in it. But, start small, figure out what works, and then, keep doubling down as much as you can. And one thing that I haven't found any limit on is investment in content. Like you hear a lot of talk about it. So let's just say your budget today on Facebook ads is $1,000. Well, maybe peel back $50 of that and put it into content, and you actually get better results. Like one of the things that I've learned a lot about is being a good business partner of Facebook. And how do you do that? You have to actually entertain the consumer. How do you get them to stop their scroll, to be curious enough to invest time in figuring out what it is that you have to offer? And we have to be an entertainment business, not just a business selling a product. And if you can marry that really well, you'll get enough attention to be able to get customers to convert. And then, of course, after that, it's about getting them to come back. So it's a whole package, and the video is just that initial discovery.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point you've made, that, when you're using a platform like Meta, the whole idea is to entertain people and kind of get them to stop scrolling. Most brands, just look at it as a platform to kind of, just push their product and, focus on selling. So when you guys are planning content, how do you balance that out? Because, obviously that you want to sell your products. But again, when you try to sell something, people don't want to buy. So how do you balance that out in your content, and how do you plan your calendar for the month?
Yeah, well, I suppose the year would be in terms of how we would create the content. So we're basing that around launches, and we would have around about, say, 9 to 10 of those a year. And that we may not have 9 to 10 shoots. Perhaps we might have 6 to 7. So sometimes we'll get 2 into the one, and then base out what we actually need. And each time we review the last one, what worked, what didn't work. And sometimes it's about, what's in the background, how she actually walked out Was she smiling? Did she show something in particular? All of that is just from trial and error and then doubling down. So we do our best to review, and there's all the analytics, both in platform, triple whale, etc., that you have available to try to take those insights to say, okay, this is what's working. And coming back to what I spoke earlier about, you'd be surprised how little some videographers and photographers know about selling a product, and I sometimes actually have to give them a pep talk in advance to sort of talked about how you can actually showcase a product, because at the end of the day they're sort of like artistic way, and yes, that can be very nice, but does it really showcase the product for all of its features and benefits? That yes, we will by the beautiful imagery and photography and the backgrounds will capture their attention, but does that convert to sales? And there is a skill there of balancing it, and some people get it, many don't, until we actually work with them one or two times to figure out, well, this particular customer that we've got prefers things to be in a certain way, and it's she's kind of like cautious about certain things, so we don't like have any flashing lights or too fast or anything like that. Give her a chance to actually consume and understand what you're actually offering, and that seems to make the difference for us.
Awesome. And if you had to kind of break down the strategy that you're using across different platforms. So, because obviously when you're doing a shoot, you're going to try and capture content for all the platforms, right? Even something as simple as a banner that's going up, on your website. So when you're planning these shoots, how does your does your content strategy differ from platform to platform, and is that already planned, or are you just going in, shooting a lot of great content and then repurposing it for different platforms?
It's a bit of all of that, and it's still a lot of learning. So it's not like it's completely down pat. So primarily we spend the majority of our budget on Meta, and we'll use that with ads. And of course there'll be some organic aspects to that. So, you've got stories and reels, etc. When you're talking about Google, which is probably around about 25% of our overall ad spend, there's not much video that you can do there. You can do that display where it sort of pops up, but in terms of the grand scheme of things, that's like less than 1% of all your budget. So you're really relying on the static imagery that you have within your product gallery that's going to be pulled from the merchant center. So you need to have eye-catching imagery, and we've been very fortunate to work with one lady that just absolutely gets it, and we've been working with her for a few years now, and we're going to be doing more photography shoots over in Greece in June, and then we're going to Joshua Tree and Palm Springs in April, and we're bringing her because she gets it, right? And it's not easy when you're going to be investing that amount of money in certain shoots to gamble on somebody new. But when it comes to sort of where I think you would be going with this is, of course, if you're going to go to TikTok or Snapchat, there's going to be a certain aesthetic and sort of expectation of that type of short form video. Now, we don't advertise or spend a lot of investment in those just because our woman is 40 and above. But if you are going to go to different platforms, obviously if you think about what works here, and yes, you could turn up in a photo shoot and just say, let's capture as much as we possibly can and then edit it in a certain way that's going to work natively to that platform. I would certainly, advocate that. It's just that for us, the two main platforms this works incredibly well, which, it's a tried and tested formula for direct to consumer, is Meta and Google.
Awesome. And, you've mentioned, Meta has been, again, one of the larger growth drivers for your brand, especially Meta ads. Could you just break down your Meta ad strategy a little further, in terms of how much are you guys testing? What percentage would you say are you testing versus, scaling? And just, if you could go a little deeper into what you guys are doing on Meta.
Yeah, so trying to break down the format that we're using, say the structure. So we're advertising in multiple countries. So that would be the starting point. So let's just say you have North America, so the US and Canada, and I will have a broad manual campaign. That will be my testing campaign. So everything goes in there first of all, and then over the course of a period of time, whether it's a week or 2 weeks, we'll see what's winning. What's a winner? Well, that's something that's spending quite considerably at a profitable ROAS and a cost per action. So for us, cost per action, just say anything that's 70 or below is excellent. We have like a lot of people who look at our ad account and say like we've got an A+ account. I even see some people talking out there about various what's a good result, whatever, and we seem to be able to do better. And I think it comes back down to that woman that we're going after. Like a woman over 40 spends a lot of time on Meta, which is good for us, of course. But coming back to the structure, so we first of all will have that broad, and as it wins, then it will go into the Advantage Plus. So we just duplicate. Another thing that we do well, because we're a brand that has a lot of SKUs. So if you have more than 100, 200 SKUs, you should certainly be testing and utilizing catalog ads. Meta's put a lot of investment into that. They're definitely promoting it. And the good thing is that that's good for retargeting. It's just going to do it on your behalf. So if they've been clicking on certain products on your catalog, on your website, it will then showcase those to them. And that could be in various different forms, from, carousel to a still image, etc. So we actually use Marpipe to be able to do, like they say themselves, is like a Canva for catalog ads for DPA. So that will just give it a nice little sort of creatives on the outside, and your only limitation there is your imagination as to what you can do with it. So we will do that for each country. So that might be, say, in our instance, Canada, the US. We do Singapore and then some Middle Eastern countries as well, but it's a small percentage of our budget. Obviously, we're Australian based, so we have Australian, New Zealand, and we're going to go after other regions of the world. So it's mostly based on country, and then that strategy of put it into the broad manual, find the winners, then upgrade them into your scaling campaign where you're going to be spending, the most amount of your budget. You want to be getting in there 20, 30, 40, as many creatives as you possibly can. And it's sort of come to that point now where there's a lot of advocates out saying there's only really one reason why you would turn off an ad, and that's where it's actually spending too much at an unprofitable amount. If it's not really spending much, but you're still getting a conversion profitably here and there, there's probably no reason to turn it off. And in our instance, the reason why we turn it off when it becomes unprofitable is because we've actually sold out of it and we won't be getting it back for a period of time. So that's a strategy you hear a lot of top guys in our industry talking about, that's tried and tested in the current sort of meta ads world. I don't do much targeting, if anything. Like I used to do women over 40, and that worked fine for me. Now I just say, hey, send it to anybody, and thankfully for us, the algorithm seems to be able to find our woman.
Well, what about things like lookalike audiences? They used to be very popular. Are you using any of those, or it's just only open targeting and Advantage Plus now?
I haven't used lookalike in 18 months, maybe something like that. Pretty sure everybody who knows anything is not saying it shouldn't be your go-to strategy. Like you do hear people say, oh, maybe if you feel like you've exhausted it and you can be more targeted or something, you perhaps add it. But it's not really the go-to. And as for interests, I think they've definitely fallen off. And if I'm led to believe the truth, then I believe Meta doesn't invest anything in interests as well. So again, your money is going to be poorly spent. I think you've got to work and to your advantages when it comes to Advantage Plus. I think Meta's worked incredibly hard to improve the algorithm when it comes to actually finding people who are in market, people who are actually genuinely likely to take action on your product. Meta's algorithm is way smarter than you are, and I trust it, and it's working for us. So I have no reason to change it.
Awesome. Could you now talk a little bit about your retention strategy? What are you guys doing in terms of getting the old customers back? Is it just retargeting ads, or is there something that you're doing beyond that as well to kind of get people to come back?
Well, we don't actually have any retargeting advertising per se. So Advantage Plus will retarget to some degree. You can actually put a percentage in there. I think maybe even just 5 to 10% is absolutely fine. And within that, PMax over in Google will spend quite a bit on retargeting. So I don't need to have retargeting campaigns. I know that they're getting served up the content that we're putting out there. But everything the marketing department here does is mostly about acquiring customers. Everybody else's business and their responsibility is getting them to spend again. So I'm very happy to give Meta and Google, let's just say $100 to acquire as many customers as possible, because we've got the unit economics to make that profitable. But we will not be profitable if we don't get enough of them to come back. And we work incredibly hard at doing that. And that comes down to a couple of things, and marketing people, from what I can see, don't get it. If you oversell your product, right? Do the amazing content and everything, but then you can't actually deliver on it and go into the Google reviews, which are actually verified, and apparel brands getting slaughtered in there because they're not actually delivering on what they are hyping in their ads. And all of the urgency and everything, the consumer is pretty savvy. They might buy from you, but they don't believe you. So you actually have to deliver on what you say. And believe it or not, then you build the trust and they will come back to you. And I know that there is a cost of living going on out there, and it affects a lot of people, probably a lot more younger people. And we're fortunate that an older sort of the boomers generally have the majority of the cash and they have a bit more disposable income. But if you actually get them to spend and deliver quality, and in our instance that means it's 100% linen, it's 100% cotton, and we don't BS them, we don't tell them anything that we can't actually deliver. And when they actually take a chance on us, because we have to break down barriers to get them to do that, and then they get their product through the post, they're actually relieved in many situations, and they feel good about it, and they feel the quality of the product and the presentation of everything, and they'll go back onto the ads and actually tell other people about that positive experience. And that's wildfire. That is so powerful, that word of mouth. So that's really key. But then there's other parts of it. Our customer wants to know that if she buys something today, there's a recourse. It's not oh, you're screwed, because a lot of the customers that we talk to say that they're calling brands, emailing, and they're not getting back to them, or they have terms and conditions that are obviously really favorable to the brand. They feel like they need to protect themselves. But we have a different view. We are the servant of this particular customer. And I tell the customer service, they work for the customer. They don't work for me. You might feel like it's just because I pay you that you work. No, you listen and you give them what they want within reason. And we work really hard on that. And things like if the customer wants to call us, we pick it up within 5 calls. We get back to them. We use Gorgeous for CX. And at the time of the pandemic, particularly when we built them, I was doing all of this. And maybe I'm a bit of a over the top freak about things but I get a buzz out of doing that, surprising them. Sometimes a customer might call or send an email or something, and there might be something wrong. I will just pick them up, and I'll ring them, and they'll be so surprised. They got a call within 5 minutes, because I care about our brand and what we're actually projecting to the world and delivering on our promises. And that shines through even to using the reviews that we have. The customer can see that we actually have, for example, on Google, coming back to those verified reviews, we are one of the few brands that I can see has actually got a top quality store badge from Google. And we got that from 249 reviews, all verified, out of 4.9 average stars. Because, as I say, it's important to us to get that out there. And the customers that we are dealing with, they have a little bit more money to spend. They will actually research the brand a lot before taking their purse out and spending the money. So we treat that as important, because we can't actually go to market and say to Google and Facebook, I'll give you $100, if we don't know we can actually give the customer a good experience.
Yeah, I think you made a great point here, because I think most brands in their process of getting new clients kind of forget the existing ones, and forget this whole aspect of customer service. What I actually wanted to ask you now was, getting to 8 figures is obviously no small feat. But along the way, I'm guessing there would have been some, bumps, and you would have had to break through those. Could you just walk us through what it's like to, let's say, get to 4 figures, and then from 4 to 5 figures, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, just, highlighting some of the challenges that were there on those phases, and, what you did to kind of break past them?
Yes, well, so the first part, you're pretty naive because you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. If I look back on it now, there was a lot that we didn't know, and you need to have a bit of grit, a bit of, a scrappiness that a startup has, and you just do a lot of stuff, and whatever might not be perfect, you don't procrastinate around it too much. Remember, you're learning and you're trying your hardest to get out there. Now, I was very lucky. I had a tailwind of COVID behind me to get through that. So, that made a bit difference compared to if someone starts a brand today, it's going to be, considerably harder. But yeah, I even seen in some instances, to use an example, where we've actually worked with some consultants who are fashion designers who started their brands during that time, and they were unsuccessful. And the reason why? They tried to be too perfect from the beginning, and everything that they did was too costly, and nobody wanted to buy it as a result. So try to manage your finances you best you can. Try a lot of things. Find out what works. We didn't necessarily know that our customer was going to be over 50 at the beginning. 70% of the women are over 50 years old. We didn't necessarily know that, but when we learned it, and I was talking to the customers, and then I was sharing that with my wife, who is the designer of the clothing, and other people, as to what was important, and that was really important. So talk to your customers. All right. So let's say that gets you sort of off the ground. What gets you to 1 million? Good product. I think you obviously need to have something that people really want. Find a hero product. There's a big tip for you that I learned. So I was even looking at brands, say like True Classic, and I've mentioned that on a couple of other podcasts as well, and they do the tees. And they just figured out, okay, there's a market for this, and that's your lead product. That's going to get people to adopt your product to begin with, and then you can cross-sell them. Again, you won't be profitable unless they come back over the long term. So get yourself a hero product, get loads of reviews, get loads of content on it. That's probably going to help you then, to get to the million. There's a lot between 1 million and 10 million, and there's a whole package of things, right? So it's really difficult for me to say what they are, but obviously continue to grow your product range. You need to be able to get positive reviews. There needs to be something on the internet that says that you are worthy of taking a chance on, because there's going to be a lot of resistance. It's an opportunity out there, because unfortunately there's a lot of brands that just can't. They can sell hard and promise the world, but they don't actually have a good product that is worthy of taking a chance on or buying again. And then you've got to build systems. And what I've done is I've gone out, and even before I could probably afford it in many ways, got the best of breed software that's in our ecosystem. Obviously Shopify is the core. That's your platform that you build from. Without it, I don't know how we'd be able to do what we do, but you get your gorgeous. We've gone for the loop, so because we're apparel business, 10 to 15% of all product is going to be returned. How do you make her confident and easy to get it back to you and get her money back in her bank account or exchange? Make it easy for them. And there are more systems on top of that, from, like I say, the reviews are going to be key, etc. So build systems around what you do, because you need to stay lean. Okay, so best of practice within direct to consumer is keep your OPEX within 20%. If you do that, you're going to be fairly good. So you're going to have to be lean. You're going to have systems that you are leaning on, because you can't have everybody that you want to hire at that sort of level. When you get to 8 figures, then you need to really hone in on your finances. Cash flow is going to be, your biggest challenge, because you're going to see so many opportunities. And I'm in that position right now. And, salespeople coming to you and all sorts. And I'm lucky if I put my money into something. Almost always it comes back, not totally, but most of the time. But if I spend everything that I want, I won't be able to pay for everything. So cash flow is probably the difference when you get to this level.
Yep. And now, the next milestone that you have, probably getting to 9 figures. What are you expecting some of the challenges to be, and what is your roadmap to get to that?
Yeah, so this year we have some big goals. Going international is huge. So we're already serving the US and Canada. I've got a small warehouse there that repurposes our returns. And I'm looking at the UK, Europe, Middle East. So our clothing is very summer. At the moment we're in February, but we're already seeing some good uplift. Maybe she's going on vacation to Florida or Caribbean, and women in Europe will be doing the same come, say, May. So we're going to most likely be working with Globally. That's going to help to localize our offering on our website and give them an experience that they would have from local payment processors through to having all of the taxes built into the pricing, so there's no surprise there. So that's going to hopefully take us from, just say, we were 12 million AUD last year, past the 20 million. And the other thing that we're going to do just from next week onwards, we've already built our Shopify B2B platform, and we're going to launch it from Wednesday. It's just going to be a soft launch. We had probably, I think it was 60 retail stores have reached out to us over the last 24 months or so, who are inquiring about stocking our product in their store. But we've been exclusively a direct-to-consumer brand, mostly from not being able to keep up with the demand. Very fortunate position to be in. But now we're building relationships with factories that have got a much larger volume capacity in Vietnam and India, and they're going to be coming on board now in the next few months, and that's going to increase our volume considerably. And the MOQs with those are quite a bit higher. We've been able to be agile and dynamic and have a shorter lead time to bring product to market, and that's been an advantage, but that can only get you so far. We now have to go bigger scale, and that means that not only have we got more product coming through, but we actually have to sell more. And wholesale we see as a great opportunity for us to be able to do that. If you think about it, still, let's just say 80% of clothing is still bought in store. We have loads of ladies asking us about stockists for our product because they like to go and try it on, and that is fair enough. And we see, from a wholesale standpoint, our ICP being those small boutiques in affluent seaside suburbs, let that be across the coastline in Australia or in California or Florida, wherever our Nomad woman lives, so she can actually go down and try it on. So that should, increase our volume considerably, and hopefully, get us on those stepping stones towards 9 figures. As a brand that only started 4 years ago from nothing, to think about even possibly achieving that is hugely exciting and almost hard to believe. But I think within a reasonable period of time, we'll be able to get there.
And I wanted to ask you, so given this experience that you've had over the last 4 years, let's say you had to launch a new brand from scratch. Using that experience, would there be something that you would do different? From your learnings, you could share something?
It would depend on what I was selling and who I was selling it to, because everything that you do needs to be thought of from the lens of the customer. So you start with that and you build everything from it. So without knowing what that is difficult. So if you're selling children's clothing, well, who's buying children's clothing? Okay, so mothers. Okay, so where are these mothers going to buy that? And then you build it around that. Or I'm selling to pensioners and they're going on day trips. Okay, well, where do they actually buy their tickets? It all comes from who is the customer? Where are they spending their time? And then how do we cut through all the noise to be able to get the message across that resonates with them? So I think there's a lot of people who forget that and they get too far going, I want to put a product out into the world. And then they go and find a customer because they feel like this product is something that's needed in the world. But no, I actually think you need to start with who is actually the customer and then build everything around them.
Awesome. And my last question to you it's not even a question. What advice would you give some of the founders that are watching this podcast?
Okay, if I had one piece of advice, and that probably is make contribution margin your North Star. So I've been quite fortunate in that I only started 4 years ago and I didn't have preconceived ideas about how things work in the industry. So I was able to just adopt best practice. And I think that some other brands, perhaps it's very difficult for them to think about the finances required to be successful because of what they've been taught from before, where you need to understand that if you're a direct-to-consumer brand, that there's a lot of variable costs. And first of all, your cost of goods sold, all the marketing that goes into it, the fulfilling of that. And then you have money left over that pays for all of your operating costs. And you need to build your business model around that, as well as of the customer, of course, and that will make you profitable. And I think for some brands, that seems to be really challenging. And probably they are anchored by not having enough of a gross profit. And they jump in with maybe only having 50% gross margin or something like that. And it gives them limited resources to be able to advertise. Like, go back to that point of, do you have the unit economics to give? And I'm just talking about in our situation, if I'm going to acquire a new customer and say, I'm going to give Meta $100. I'm happy to give Google the same because I know that I've got the unit economics to make this profitable. And I think that often they're jumping in there and they don't actually have that figured out. So if you're watching this and you haven't actually launched your brand, get this right first of all. And if it takes you another few months to actually work on your product, then you think about, is there somebody who's willing to pay me enough that I'm going to have 60, 70, maybe if you're lucky, 80% gross margin? Go and do that. That will set you up for success way better than some sort of fancy branding or whatever that you might be spending a lot of your time on.
Thank you so much for doing this, Donald. This has been a very, very insightful episode.
Thank you. My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.